Welcome back to the More Alive podcast. I have a question for you. Have you ever tallied up how much time and how much energy intrusive thoughts burn in our daily lives? I think because we're so used to them, we don't really know. And I think that we don't truly understand them. So this is going to be an interesting expose on why we have intrusive thoughts and how we actually have a tremendous amount of power to shift them out of our thought stream really easily once we know and understand what their function is and then how to relieve them of duty. So imagine that your week sounds something like, am I doing enough? Am I enough? Should I be with my kids? Am I growing fast enough? Am I getting left behind? Did I disappoint so-and-so? Should I post today? Is he okay? Did I forget something? What if this stops working? So just to name a few, So imagine being able to go from an intrusive thought like that to totally calm, focused, present, and devoted to what you love and what you want to be doing right now in any given moment. I don't know about you guys, but I've absolutely dealt with the mom guilt of being away and am I giving them enough attention and am I doing this right? My kids are grown and gosh, I remember thinking, I said this to one of my friend's husbands who is getting ready to see his daughter off to her first semester of college overseas. And I was like, let me guess. So you saw I saw this worry on his face and I was like, let me guess. You're wondering if you taught her everything she needed to know. And he's like, he just looks at me and he's like, yeah. And I was like, you didn't, but you're not supposed to. But he was so preoccupied, worry. He was missing the connection of the moment. And we actually truly, when we understand intrusive thoughts and when we understand how to shift them to relieve them of duty, so to speak, and you're going to understand what I mean when I say that, and be able to go to totally calm, clear, grounded, present, wise, intuitive in minutes, which sounds like a pipe dream, but it's really not. This isn't a hypothetical thing. This is what I use and have shared with thousands of people at this point who have entered my world. And every time, this is such a fun experiment to me because I love it when people see what their thoughts sound like before we do work like this and then after. In fact, I got permission from one of my friends and also one of my team members, Lorelai, to actually play you an audio of some intrusive thoughts that she was having. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this first, and then I'm going to go in and I'm going to explain everything that you need to know in a way that you have never heard someone say. You've never heard someone talk about intrusive thoughts in this way. So get ready to have your mind just opened. Get ready to have significantly more power in the next few minutes. Get ready to understand yourself in the way you've never been able to. Get ready to feel certain that you can become more powerful than your intrusive thoughts. And also understand what gave them legs in the first place. They're not trying to ruin our lives, but they do feel radically uncomfortable sometimes. So I'm going to share with you Lorelai's voice message that she just happened to send me before I started recording. And I was like, bro, I can't even believe the timing right now of you sharing this with me because I'm seriously getting ready to create a podcast. And she was so excited. And I was like, would it be okay if I talked about this? I don't have to name you. She's like, no, I want, you can totally name me. I don't care. I just want people to hear and understand. Okay. So let me just play.
Because I realized something. Not everybody has a little voice in their head when they're wicked sad that says, I'm the saddest little girl that ever lived. Not little. I'm the saddest girl who ever lived. And, I was having a hormonal emotional day yesterday, so everything was magnified, and my cutie little inside voice literally said, we're the saddest girl that ever lived. And I'm like, that's so dramatic. And so I'm like, all right, I'm going to go see if I can find this show I wanted to watch. And it wasn't available. And somehow the little girl inside was like, see? It was funny because she was like using evidence of all of the reasons why I could be like the saddest girl. But I don't think everyone has that experience that says that, which tells me something about, it tells me something about my internal world is all I'm trying to say.
She thinks she's special. Hold on, she's not.
Wait, so I was like all sad and everything, and then I was talking to Eric about Waldemere, the amusement park here, and then I got really mad about the one ride I hate. It's called the Wacky Shack, and it's just like, I hate it so much, and my sad switched to rage, and then I had more energy. This is psycho. I feel psycho.
Oh my God. So she's like, I love my sacred rage. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm literally about to record a podcast. And I said, what were you doing before the voice, before the sad? She said, I don't remember, but notice what you're doing beforehand, because a lot of times that's a signal as to like what the voice is trying to do. So hang on. She said that it felt more physical than a true trigger. So triggers can be micro and macro. So sometimes we feel this like intense trigger, and sometimes it's as subtle as an intrusive thought, but I would still label it as a micro trigger. And so she was thinking like, I didn't pay that much attention to it. And I was like, okay, great. What I want you to do is I want you to use the techniques that I've taught you and clear the trigger. And then I want you to come back and I want you to tell me what your new thoughts are right away. So she's like, okay. So she took a couple minutes, came back, and she goes, after I was done, the thought was, I'm clearly not the saddest girl with so much life lotto moments. So she calls like her like winning streak, her like daily wins as life lotto moments. Like, I'm the luckiest girl, like I'm winning the lotto, right? She's like, I have too many. So she went from like, I'm the saddest girl in the world, and see, of course it like didn't work out for me. And then after she used the technique that I'm going to talk to you guys about, I'm going to teach you guys some of it. She said, when I look for that little saddest girl, I see her as separate from me now. And I'm the adult and she's the child, and I don't have to join her, but I can love her. And that took the power away. And it went from she and me, not we. So before, the internal language for her was we, and then now it's she and me. She says, I don't feel bound to her like that now. And an interesting fact though, yesterday I knew that I could fix it. And even if I couldn't, I knew that I could tell you, and I didn't because I wanted it. Does that make sense? And I'm like, more than I can possibly describe. Okay, so what I want to offer you guys first is like how you know if you're in an intrusive thought. So I call like our early childhood blueprint of how we receive love your princess operating system or your little dude operating system, depending on like what resonates with you, or your queen operating system or your king operating system. So what that means is the difference between truth and trauma. I say all the time, if you're in the presence of truth, suffering eliminates itself. Like, truth and suffering can't coexist in the same moment, even if life is difficult. We can have difficulties, and actually we don't mind difficulties. We don't mind going on a hero's journey. We actually like going on a hero's journey. But if we're in a state of suffering, I don't get my needs met, then we're in an earlier childhood blueprint of how we receive love or don't receive love. And I would call like the inner thoughts and sometimes even slight physical constrictions. So I say all the time, I'm like, this is like, you'll feel it in your spine. And that's why I call like my big mastermind spine of a queen, because we're helping like slowly vertebrae by vertebrae correct your spine to where you're standing tall and you operate predominantly as the queen, aka from your truth, from your wisdom, from clarity, etc. So Lorelai pointed out something that I say all the time. I'm like, it is so easy to see which operating system that you're in based off of how you say the word see. If you say the word see in the same way that she said, like life lotto, if she's just like life lotto, see how this works for me, even in difficult moments, see how it's working, see how I'm moving the needle, see how I have resources, see how I have energy, see how I have power. So your inner queen, I'm just assuming like everyone that's listening to my podcast is like thinking of like Princess OS or Queen OS. So your inner queen operating system is like, see how life moves for me, see how life works in my favor, see how there's a divine intelligence that loves me, or like whatever correlates with your belief system. Princess OS says see differently. She goes, see how I don't get what I need, see how it never works out for me, see how my needs aren't being met. So the fact that Lorelai said that like so perfectly, I'm like, that is such a perfect example of exactly how you know which operating system you are moving from and the information that is being delivered to you about what's happening and what it means. The second that you clear the micro trigger, the meaning changes, and the meaning changes to be something that's more truthful and powerful. And the way that she said, when I see her now, I see her as separate from me. I'm the adult, she's the child, and I don't have to join her, but I can love her, and that took the power away. And she said, after it was done, I'm clearly not the saddest girl because I just have too many life lotto moments. I have too many, right? So she can see her blessings. She can see what's true. Have you ever like looked around your life and you're like, I know that I'm so blessed. I don't know why I feel lonely. I don't know why I feel in lack. I don't know why I feel so afraid. So a micro trigger will present an emotion like that, and then the emotion informs new thought streams. And now I'm going to explain this to you perfectly in a way that you'll never be able to like not understand again. It's going to make total sense. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about a client. So I had a client who's like staring at me across my screens looking exhausted, right? She's a woman with a massive vision. She's building a business. She cares about her integrity. She wants to be extraordinary. She wants to be a nurturing mom for her kids. She wants to be a soft, loving, feminine energy home to her partner. And she genuinely wants to do right by everybody in her life. And she looked at me and she said, I'm doing everything right on paper, but my mind won't stop. The moment I sit down to work on my business, I get this surge of guilt. And it pops up telling me that I should be with my kids. And the second that I'm with my kids, fear shows up telling me that my money's going to dry up and I'm going to lose everything. It feels like this constant background noise stealing my energy, and I'm just trying to make it stop. And I listened to her and I paused and I asked a question that really took her off guard. I said, what if every single one of those intrusive thoughts and uncomfortable emotions is actually on your team? And she looked at me like I had a penis growing out of my forehead. And I told her, I was like, think about it. Fear doesn't try to sabotage our business. Its purpose is to protect standards and security. Guilt isn't trying to ruin your afternoon with your kids. Guilt's purpose in life is to preserve connection and protect connection and devotion to our loved ones. Shame isn't trying to destroy our life. It's not trying to eat us alive. It's not meaning to feel like razor blades in our body sometimes or feel like this like heavy dense thing. Its job actually is to keep you connected to a loved one or a group that provides love and safety. Every uncomfortable feeling has a job. Every uncomfortable feeling is well intended, but poor in execution for the job because it's coming from a primitive place. And a lot of times it's like coming from like our early childhood understanding of the world, not our adult understanding of the world. And so every uncomfortable feeling is a primitive attempt to protect something that we deeply, deeply care about. And so as I'm telling her this, like I'm watching her eyes soften just a little bit, and she's like, okay, cool, I hear you. But if it's trying to help, why does it feel like it's ruining my life? And I said, because of the emotional charge attached to it. So when that charge hits, our focus narrows. The second that your focus narrows, you lose access to like your peripheral vision, total clarity, your ability to see the full picture, your wisdom, your connection, your creativity, your power, and your power to choose from your heart. Like that primitive emotion demands so much of an energetic tax that it leaves us with zero resources to actually do what it wants us to do. The intention is to be useful, but it is like hiring a 4-year-old to guard the gates of a castle. So I say all the time, like your princess operating system, when that uncomfortable emotion comes up, what it's trying to signal to us is that there is a younger version of us that's attempting to guard the gates of a castle. And it's just like not the best person to suited for the job. If you heard how Lorelai explained it, she goes, my little girl. So she already has like a general understanding that there's like a little version of myself that's just like, I just want to be seen. I just want to be met. I just want to get my needs met. And she was just like, instead of bringing energy and presence and wise presence to the situation, this like poorly equipped guard, maybe at a very young age, listening to how she was describing it, I suspect is probably like around a 4 or 5-year-old version. And I only know because like I've listened to so many women share what's happening, and I can hear in the tone of their voice. And then when I actually do one-on-one work with women and I hear, we actually sometimes will look for the original root of the memory that's causing that information, that's causing that like hypervigilance, that's causing that misinformation of like how to protect our resources, loved ones, connections, etc. the best. And I'll help them see the age and the event that occurred that caused that misinformation. And I can almost always predict exactly, like I'll hear the tone of their voice and I'm like, that sounds about like age 7. You can kind of tell based off of the choice of words that we might hear, the inner dialogue. If we hear this inner dialogue of like, that's not fair, that's maybe like 12 or 13. There's like a little bit more of like a older adolescence to it. So you can kind of tell based off of the language that you're using, but that part doesn't matter. Like you actually don't have to dig in and figure out like what age that occurred. What we have to do is we have to not tell our primitive mind that we don't want it to protect us because it will not allow that. So if you notice what Lorelai said, I knew that I could ask you for help and I didn't want to. She actually was rewarded with a sense of pleasure, so to speak. Sometimes when we allow ourselves to go into like being the victim of the moment, it convinces us that we quit for a second. Like just like, you know what? Fuck it. If I can't get my needs met, I don't care about this anymore. And then we feel a little bit of like lightness and levity because we don't feel the burden of figuring it out anymore. And we don't feel the heaviness anymore. So we can get like a subtle reward from it. But the problem is we still have a child guarding the gates. And that is actually a problem. So what we're looking to do is not to take guilt off guard, to take guilt off duty. We're looking to replace the guard. Then our primitive mind will allow us, but we have to signal what is the replacement, and then we can. So I said to my client, the intention is to be useful, but it's like hiring a 4-year-old, right? So I asked her to look at the guilt that she was feeling about her kids. And I said, guilt wants you to repair. Guilt wants you to restore love. Guilt wants you to be present, but guilt doesn't do well at that, unfortunately. Like well-intentioned, poorly equipped. guilt loads your system with like big energy. It drains you. To actually hear your kids and to be deeply present, to bring nurture to your relationship, you need a high level of energy, and guilt can't do the job that it was hired to do. Its very purpose is dysfunctional and becomes more dysfunctional the more that we don't understand it, because when we ignore the emotions, again, it's like a 4-year-old trying to warn us of something. And when we don't listen, what happens to a 4-year-old who's trying to warn us of something? They throw a temper tantrum and they get louder. So it's like a Chinese finger pull. You try to resist it and run away, and it's just like, no, tighter. So we can't clear the charge. We can't clear the emotional charge, that heaviness, unless we understand the charge, unless we bring presence to it, unless we listen to it. So I walked her through what we needed to do before we try to clear the charge. And I said, we have to ask a better question. So our primitive mind isn't going to let us get rid of protection, but it will let us improve protection. So here's how we do that. I said, just for a second, tune your attention inward to that feeling of guilt and ask, what were you trying to protect? And then for guilt, when you understand each human emotion, so like there's not a thing in the body that doesn't have a function, right? Like there's a purpose for each of it. Can we live without certain organs? Yes. Would it be better if we didn't? Yes. So there's a difference between survival and thriving. Like, can we live without our appendix? I want to say like our appendix can help improve our immune system. Can we take it out? Can we live without it? Absolutely. Is it a preference? No. I would prefer to keep all the things where they belong, and I would prefer to understand them, and I would prefer for them to all function well. So the function of guilt is devotion, love, and connection. Connection with our offspring, connection with our partner, connection maybe with parents. And so then we ask the next important question, which is, what would do this job better? And the answer is energy, clarity, and intentional presence. Guilt turns our attention inward, and we lose intentional presence with other people. So I told her guilt is trying to support this responsibility, but energy does that better than guilt. So because energy brings clarity, clarity allows you to show up, apologize if needed, listen deeply, choose differently, and prioritize what you value. So the moment that her deeper mind understood energy and clarity and presence do an infinitely better job protecting her family and connections than heavy guilt, the guilt starts to lighten. Right away, her face was like softening, shoulders dropped. She finally understood, and she's just like, okay, I don't have to feel victimized by this anymore because I understand it. It's trying to do a good job. It's not the best equipped to do that. Now, what I do with her next is something that I teach you guys how to do in Feminine Velocity. I would love to have you guys in our next round. It's $99 for a 30-day live challenge with me. And one of the steps of Feminine Velocity is to let intrusive thoughts off duty so that they could be replaced with what would do a better job for us. So I use a technique called the magic eraser. It takes like 1 to 2 minutes. It's a neuroscience-based technique that clears the rest of the charge, not something that I can do for you guys in a podcast. But once it's totally gone, what's left immediately is the upgraded emotions that guilt was just like inequipped to be able to support with. It's like instantaneously changing the radio station. The intrusive noise doesn't like fade over 3 weeks where you have to sit down and do a lot of hard work and you have to like write out I statements and you have to meditate and do like make weird sounds like, you know, Joe Dispenza teaches, and like, God bless him, I love his work. Like, I'm such a huge Joe fan. Joe, if you're listening, we have some new research to talk about. But what happens is like that stream of thought, it's like changing the radio station to something that actually gives you more power. It disengages immediately because it just doesn't have a job anymore. So the alarm gets to stand down and we are left with a superior tool for protection of all of the resources that matter to us, that we value, like our connection with our family. So when you upgrade the tool, you upgrade everything. You get deeper wisdom. You get easier sense of protection to actually like view your whole environment. You have stronger discernment. It's easier to not self-abandon and to say yes to what you really want to say yes to, and to say no to what you really want to say no to. So you have cleaner relationships that are based in like truth and honesty. And your body can actually start to prioritize emotions that we would describe as like thriving, like joy and fun and curiosity and play, and like even sexual energy can return or can even become heightened. But beyond all, like trust me, like sex gets better the more the intrusive thoughts go away. But more than that, you get, I would say, if anybody ever researched this, like I bet you spend at least a minimum of 10 hours a week giving time, attention, and energy to intrusive thoughts that are slowing down progress, that are slowing down connection, that are slowing down presence, that are interrupting presence, that steal your emotional bandwidth, and that steal a tremendous amount of energy. I was getting ready to like start running some paid advertising the other day. All of a sudden I just felt like this fatigue. I call it expansion fatigue. And I could feel that primitive part of my mind saying, no, we don't want to be in front of strangers. That's not safe. So I use a technique that I teach you guys in Feminine Velocity. First, I help my primitive mind know that fatigue and low energy doesn't protect us best. So one of the things that I give you guys in Feminine Velocity is I give you guys a sheet, and it explains every emotion, sadness, irritation, anger, fear, shame, and explains each of their purposes and why they don't do the job, their own job the best, and how to replace them quickly. So this takes 1 to 2 minutes, 1 to 2 minutes to get your bandwidth, your attention, your energy, your focus, and your presence back. You don't need to become the woman who can carry 700 pounds of like enduring, of like, I can just shove it down and forget it and pretend it doesn't exist and lock in and get fucking focused. And like, really, that's why a lot of that language exists, is because people didn't have a better way. It's just like, it works. It's just like the most inefficient way to do it, basically. And I think like the coolest thing for me is like the levity that seeps in, especially watching women do this in Feminine Velocity. I started actually asking them questions, and like, at what day does like their feminine spark come back? At what day do they start to trust themselves again, to not self-abandon? So usually by about day 14, they're like, oh my God, I feel like me again. Like the energy comes back in, the spark comes back in, because they've just been consistently removing things that are taking them out of Feminine Velocity. And a lot of those things are intrusive thoughts. And what happens next is by week 2, energy, excitement, like appetite and hunger for exciting projects comes back. It doesn't feel like weight anymore. We get rid of that 700 fucking pounds and just like let you move freely throughout the world, and maybe like dance and shimmy a little. It's kind of nice. So our identity kind of gets like this restoration of like, okay, I trust myself as a devoted mother. I trust myself as an ambitious creator. I trust myself. I trust my identity. I trust the woman that I want to be, that I know myself to be. People start to collapse times into future self identities. A lot of times people are like, oh my God, I thought it would take me 3 years to become like this woman that they're, that they're collapsing time into in 30 days. And, understanding exactly what to do when things like guilt, anger, irritation, rage, sadness start to just hijack our emotional state. Our emotional state really matters because our emotional state influences what we believe is happening, what we believe it means, and what we believe we should do about it. So a lot of people are taking action around things they shouldn't be, and their to-do list all of a sudden looks like it's, has like 14 things on it in any given hour. And what you'll find is when the micro trigger goes away, the intrusive thoughts go away, all of a sudden the list gets shorter because you see clearly what needs to be done, what has the highest value, what's going to have the biggest impact, and you have the emotional state to make it happen. The state affects the action, and the action produces evidence, either evidence of like, oh my God, I'm distracted with my kids, I'm distracted at work, or evidence that like I am present with my kids, I am present with my work. Like we want the evidence to go from like maybe I'm a failure at both of them to like I can be present with what is right now. Feminine velocity, like the point of step 2 in feminine velocity is to interrupt those loops so that we don't get stuck in them. My clients often say things like, my kids got their mom back. Like, I can't believe I'm this present with my husband. Like, our connection feels stronger. They don't generally come to me for that, but they're just always surprised. I always love asking people at the end where they're just like, what was one thing that you got that you didn't plan for? And a lot of times it's just like, I restored connection with this person in my life, with this person in my family, like my mom, my daughter. One woman cried in our last round and like we were all crying with her. And she's just like, I've been disconnected. Like I went through a divorce. I was disconnected with my daughter and like we're so connected again. This happened in like 7 to 14 days and like their relationship and their connection came back in like a wrecking ball because children are constantly sending out signals to see if like we can feel our mother or feel our father. Like, can I feel them? Are they present? Am I safe? And so if we're lacking presence, if we're not in our heart and we're in our head and they're checking for the sensation of our heart, which we can feel among each other and they can't feel it. I just worked with a client earlier and she was just like, oh my gosh, I had this memory come up from when I was 7 years old. And I had this belief system of just like, I don't have value. I can't remember if I don't have value or if I'm not important enough, not because that's what her mom was saying to her, her mom was reflecting to her, but because her mom was in her own micro trigger. And when she sent out the signal, it came back to her and she couldn't connect. And so her sweet 7-year-old interpreted it in the only way that she knew how. So contrary to what the rest of the world tells us, I have great news. We are not our own worst enemy. We just have to stop letting 4-year-olds guard the gates. So I don't know about you, but like I think about how much time that we get back if we knew how to like change the channel on intrusive thoughts in like a minute or two. I teach this specifically in relationships with Ignite His Leadership and like how men come in like a wrecking ball of like, let me help you, let me support you. When those intrusive thoughts of like, my needs are met, see, nobody loves me, nobody takes care of me go away. All of a sudden the men are like, ooh, there's space for me to help. Can I do a job? Can I do a job well and be praised and acknowledged and respected for it? Yes, please. And all of a sudden they're just like, oh my God, my man's obsessed with me. Like he's obsessed with me like he used to be. And then I think about like you, like specifically you. You're the type of woman that is here for a sense of purpose. Like you have a sense of purpose in this world. And you're here to impact many. And we need things that are going to split and interrupt the loop to make sure that that doesn't steal your attention, your focus, your heart, your integrity, your truth away from that sense of purpose and why you're here as well. Not everybody has this like big role in the world to like move humanity forward, but you do. I understand that is the woman who listens to a podcast like this. So if this podcast was surprising, if you have never heard somebody talk about intrusive thoughts in this way, share it with an ambitious mom friend or any ambitious friend or anyone with a brain, basically, because we all experience intrusive thoughts. Lorelai was just like, oh, I think I'm the only one. No, we all think that. But it's not true about any of us. We all have them, but we all think we're the only one. We all think that nobody understands. But the truth is, it's just that nobody understands what they actually mean. So if you loved this episode, if you learned something that had great value, please share it with a friend. Like, comment, review, rate, share, star, like whatever it is. And then if you would like to join us in the next round of Feminine Velocity, spend 30 days live with me, restoring your feminine spark. shutting down the loops of intrusive thoughts, staying focused in your portal of magic and creativity, allowing life to feel lighter and easier, and remembering who the fuck you are, being the woman who creates with her sense of like passion, power, and magic. Would that be worth $99 to you? And to spend an hour once a week with me where we are just like so locked into this magic together, would that also be worth $99 to you? Then if it is, I can't wait to have you join us in the next round. All right, love you guys.